In this lesson, we'll talk about lights and light caps. So we will be able to create a render in here. Let's say we want to now modify some of the lights that we've got. So we can go under Light, and here we get a preview of our scene, and you can see we have one light selected, and this is where that light is actually coming from. So if we wanted to add maybe another light, we would click on that light. With that light selected, we can choose where that's coming from. So we can move it around, and you can see how that moves around in our scene there. Okay, so we could come around over here. We could change the intensity, so we can increase the intensity. We can also change the color. So here we've got this kind of a blue color. We could make it kind of a green if we wanted to, and then we could render that. And now we have two lights working in our scene to create the final look. So there we have our render with our green light, and you could go in here and add additional lights as you see fit. Okay, you can turn on the shadows and so forth. Another method that we could use to light this is to actually use an image to do that. And so we can, under light cap and under background, we have two things that are going to work together. So what we want to do is we want to use an existing image, and it can be an HDR image, but we're just going to use an image for an initial sort of background. So let's just use this texture 04, which is kind of this road. And so we've got this image loaded up. We can now calculate lighting from this actual image. To do that, we'll go into the background subpalette here, and at the bottom there is a button for a light cap. So it's going to create light caps from the environment. Now also there's an option for this number of samples. So right now it's set to 3. So if you take a look at the text, 3 means we're going to get 8 lights out of this. If you want to have more lights created from this, you can increase this sampling. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit light cap. So what that's going to do is, under light cap, it's going to now create a setup with 8 lights that's calculated from this environment. It's going to kind of pipe it into the material aspects of this. And so now if we render this, we'll get a much different look. We've got a lot more lights in there, and it's going to kind of try to make it look like it's coming from this particular environment, or being lit from this particular environment. So we'll go ahead and let that think for a moment. So there, with that lighting in, you can see we get a much kind of better result, and it kind of looks like it's matching with the environment a little bit more. You can see we're getting some artifacts from some of our BPR filters, and so you might want to tweak those. Now that we've got the lighting different, your filters will probably want to be a little bit different as well. Also, the eye is a little bit too shiny, so we can start to tweak our materials. So in our toy plastic, coming in here and maybe taking some of these values down a little bit. Okay, and so coming in here, let's say now we've got our light caps. We want to now maybe edit these a little bit. So at any time you can come in and pick any of these lights that have been captured. There's a light index which shows you kind of what number that light is, and it'll also show you what color it is. So light 6 has this blue color, light 4 is kind of a gray, and it's down here at the bottom. And so all of these lights that have been calculated have a particular color and a particular strength. In this case they're all at strength 1, but if we want to, we could increase the strength, maybe increase that a little bit, or decrease it, as the case may be. And you can move those around too if you wanted to, kind of tweak the position of those. Okay, now we can also, since we have this background but we don't necessarily want to have a detailed background, maybe we just want kind of a vague background, we can go backwards and we can actually calculate a background from the light cap that we have. So we've calculated this light cap. We can now go backwards and say, okay, I've got this light cap set up. You could create this on your own if you wanted to. You could set up all of these lights yourself. And then what you can do is create an actual environment. It'll just be kind of a vague, kind of splotchy environment that is going to look like it's casting this sort of a light. So you can say create environment from light cap, and it'll go ahead and calculate that new environment. So you can see it's not really a bitmap of the road anymore. It's now an image that's been created from the light cap that we were using. So there's our render with our background, and you can go back in at any time and tweak the lights that you've got there. Or you can add another background in calculate some lights. You could go in and create your own lights if you want to, and then you can come in and start to tweak your different materials as well. So for instance, if we kind of pick this material here, we might want to come in and increase the specularity on that, and maybe tweak the specular curve so that he's a little bit shinier. Let's also turn up the color bump on that, and let's do another render and see what that looks like. So you can see that's a bit shinier. So you can really go back and forth and decide, how much specularity do you actually want? How shiny do you want this to be? I'll bump this up a little bit more. Again, do another render. So it's getting a little bit shinier and getting a little bit more detail in there, and you can tweak that a little bit more if you want to with your BPR filters. So that's a quick look at lighting and light caps. Again, we have training that goes into most of these aspects of ZBrush in more depth. We just want to give you an overview as you go through this new application on some of the different options that you have. So the next lesson we'll talk about outputting your images. So saving single images out, saving movies and turntables and that sort of thing. So we'll talk about that next.